Mr. Chairman, if we could start with, before we start the next agenda, item for housekeeping, can I move? I will move to accept the annual medical examiner report.
I accept. All in favor, say that.
Aye.
Both same sign, motion carries. Thanks, sir. Sheriff's Department, request to enter into agreement with the Emily City Fair Board.
Motion to move that.
Brian, you got to just,
I would just like to state for the record that I am on the Fair Board. So if anybody feels that there's a conflict, I would be happy to abstain. I personally don't see one, but I just wanted to state it for the record that I am on.
that's good, that's all required normally. It states that he's on the board. Okay, you made a motion?
Made a motion.
So supported.
Question.
All in favor of the motion?
I don't want this to How did ask Sheriff, is this our first time doing this
We've done more.
officially by contract?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we normally Emily City was the lead and we supported, but then now we would be the lead.
Okay. There's a contract behind this agreement.
Yeah, and we've been obviously drawing that up, talking about it. It was kind of a unique situation because of the manpower in Emily City. I went to Emily City to find out exactly how many they had because of they got people that are out on sickness stuff and some other things. So just by numbers alone, with that many people coming through there, we're gonna help them out.
And I would expect this year.
Really overwhelming, that's why they
From what we've seen
need people down there with a rest power.
with other festivals and events in the state, we feel that way as well. And that's why we thought this is the time to move forward and take this in a different direction. And enter into an agreement with the Sheriff's Department. Obviously, as the Fair Board, our number one concern is safety of our guests. We've had very few instances down there in the past 15 years, and we want to keep it that way. So just presence alone is a huge factor in that. And, myself and our manager in Kent, we had a sit down with the sheriff and his officers last week, over the details and stuff, and me and the sheriff have had conversations in the past several weeks regarding this, what we think our needs are, and we have approximately 37,000 people that attend the fairgrounds those 5 days, so it's pretty significant. Like I said, we just want to make sure that
Don't want to end up into a contest with Emily City, you understand?
that we end up, with being able to do the best job we can for our patrons. And we think this is the way to go.
Wow.
So I assume, are we approving the agreement as we do this? Or are we just approving the process?
We're approving the sheriff to enter into an agreement or contract with the Emily City Fair Board.
So that agreement won't necessarily come back to us. That'll be something that he works out
It'll work.
with the administrator.
And we've already, obviously, with Quentin and with Jackie, they're obviously the brains of my operation. They're the smart ones, it's not me. So we've already been having these discussions on the best way to do it, obviously, the county.
And I'm assuming we're doing this because fair is coming very quickly.
End of July.
Because normally this is two-step process.
Yeah, it's a unique circumstance because of the manpower issue with Emily City.
And everything's going fast right now, and also manpower from every business in this area.
This is only to enter into an agreement with the Emily City Fair Board for the 2021
Says
Emily City, whatever it is, State Fair. Eastern Michigan State Fair, it's the only county that wanted it.
One comment if I can for our administrator, for the sheriff. We might be better off in the motion to use the terminology memorandum of understanding rather than contract, because I believe the county has a process in place that individual departments cannot contract on behalf of the county. It has to come back to the board for board approval. So in this particular case, it's not like annual contract deputies or whatever the case may be. It's just a memorandum of understanding between your department and the fair board, how that whole situation is going to be operated.
I can change the motion.
That's why we wrote it, that's why we wrote it in. Or actually, it was agreement, wasn't necessarily a contract.
It'll work the way Lenny said, I think that makes sense. I'll change the motion to that.
second approved.
Okay, we have a motion and support with the change. All in favor of the motion, so say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion carries.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Additional items, we got some more additional items. Do we, Quentin? Jackie?
No, sir.
Okay,
Are you looking?
trying to see if there's something laying around here.
Committee of the whole. Motions.
Well, yeah, I understand that. I'm looking at draft motions. Committee of the whole.
Sure. So the last 2 pages of your agenda packet, second to the last page, double-sided, is the draft motions from the June 24th Committee of the Whole. And on page 1 of 2 of those, I will move draft motions 1 through 6.
Support.
All in favor of that, signify saying aye.
Aye.
Both same sign, motion carries.
Backside of that, page 2 of 2 from that same meeting, I will move motion 7.
Support.
All in favor of that motion, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Both same sign, motion carries. American Rescue Plan Act Committee. Do we have some minutes out of that?
We do. Oh, minutes, I'm sorry.
Motions.
We have 2 motions, yes.
Okay.
Last page of the packet.
All right, I'll read them if you want to.
I'll read, okay.
Go ahead.
No, the first motion, motion by Henning, supported by Zender, to recommend to the full board pursuant to the recommendation by the ARPA committee to authorize administration and building and grounds park department to immediately proceed with getting separate quotes for the replacement of roofs on various buildings and pavilion structures at both General Squire Memorial Park and Trzuski County Park. Motion carried unanimously.
I'll make a motion to move that one. Support.
We have a motion and support. I'm sure you got questions. Go ahead.
Can I ask? Again, this is
You
a
were in
motion
there.
coming forward that comes out of this committee,
Right.
new committee. What it does is just authorizes getting quotes, right?
Correct.
We have no quotes that we're approving at this.
Correct. This is to gather quotes as we start exploring what some of the true costs are.
For everything we need.
But this is a little unusual because we haven't brought, again, this through committee of the whole, but we're trying to expedite this because the need to get bids on things as the market seems to be getting saturated. And it will get more expensive and harder
And we don't want to be working on the water parks in February.
than that too. But things are pressing us to do this a little bit more expeditiously than we would.
I do think it's appropriate reaction to just the market conditions right now. Not only about material prices, but the timing of building material actually coming to and from the supplier to the end user, which is us. So in this case, under this type of motion, I think it's a very appropriate step so we can start getting these quotes to get ahead of it.
Just wanted to bring that up. Thank you.
Okay. We've got a motion and support. All in favor of the motion, say aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion number 2. Made by Henning. Go ahead.
Motion made by Henning, supported by Zender, to recommend to the full board, pursuant to the recommendation of the ARPA committee, that the county proceed with identifying infrastructure county asset projects as priorities for bringing before the Board of Commissioners for consideration action. Motion carried unanimously.
I'll make the motion to move forward. Just trying to identify is what you're saying.
We're just identifying projects in priority of infrastructure.
Motion to move.
Support.
All in favor of the motion, simply saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Lenny, you want to pay the bills? What's the matter?
I want to at least comment that really this is the motion, in a sense, it's the underpinning of what we're doing here at motion number 1. What we're saying in this, just so everybody's clear, that the first priority of things to look at under the ARP is infrastructure that we can appropriately fund through ARP. And that's the big challenge. We've been still wrestling with what qualifies and what doesn't qualify.
The reason you're wrestling with it is they're not committing anything to us either, so it's tougher.
Because it's anything that the state or federal government does is clear as mud.
Okay, it's the one that everybody's confused with. and that's what we're doing.
There's some guidance. We're pretty sure that this now, and I think our county administrator, controller has also checked on this, that this follows.
Yes.
That's the reason for our asking the board to move ahead and set a priority.
Okay.
Thank you.
And our chief financial officer over there, Jackie, she's the one to look through this completely and look at grants, what we can use this for and what we can't use this for along with it. So we pretty much established where we can use the money, what for, and if it's limited. And the things that we're actually asking for right now, that's what we found that they will approve.
I would say we know some things that we think.
We certainly don't want to spend.
We're still working on a lot of other things.
Dial,
The government's
I
been clear about.
understand your concern. But in 2 years, 4 years, the money we don't use has to go back.
But again, the challenge has been that the guidance is not specific in some ways. And so it is a challenge to try to figure out what's appropriate and what will be covered. Because we can't necessarily make decisions and then find out later that these funds don't cover it. Because we don't have
You've got to research that for us right now.
Well, I think administration, Jackie, Clinton have been doing that, and we get help from MAC and NACO and a lot of other sources. So it is being looked at, but it's not yet a done deal situation where everybody understands what's allowed and what's not. That's been the hang-up.
Move on to your request to pay the bills, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
I'll move the road commission's audit motion and the county's audit motion with the controller's signature.
I need a roll call.
Commissioner Schneider,
Yes?
Commissioner Warren,
Yes.
Commissioner Zender,
Yes.
Commissioner Henning,
Yes.
Commissioner Jarvis, Chairman Jones.
Yes, we spent $2,385,157.15 this morning. Of hard-earned taxpayer dollars. Moving on, if we have anything, the second public time. Would anybody like to address this board in the second public time? Hearing and seeing no one, I'm going to close the second public time. Rick, you got anything this morning?
I just wanted to add, I know some people weren't crazy about me asking the medical examiner these questions about COVID, but it was good that we asked him those questions, because if the medical examiner can't tell us who had COVID, who didn't have COVID, what the hell did we listen to for the last 18 months? So that to me is something everybody should be alarmed about. He has no way of knowing. And I know, and you know, that I have friends that died from COVID, or some that were said to be died from
Well, if
COVID.
it didn't exist, it couldn't have killed them.
But I agree, some may have died from COVID. And the true numbers are coming out. The CDC is still looking and everybody else is still investigating. But we all shut down, put masks on our face. This weekend, you're gonna celebrate Independence Day. This country is the freest country in the world. I listened to a young lady today from North Korea. She can't believe that Americans would not stand up for the American flag. She's talking about the young lady that represents the United States at the Olympics. This is Independence Day coming up. I hope you understand who, and we had Pete in here from the veterans talk about World War II veterans, veteran salute recognized pretty soon. How many people died for us to have this freedom? And we got to the point that we allowed the government to control how we live for the last 18 months. We have issues with contractors. I had a tough time finding a roofer. I had my roof because of the storm the other day. I got to get insurance claim done. Try to get a roofer today. And everybody I talked to that has businesses, they're like, this is the hardest thing to do right now is try to find a contractor. But we did that because of the 18 months of listening to this kind of crap. And then he gives us a report and doesn't tell us what we all talked about for that 18 months. And then when I ask him, he tells us exactly that this government cannot tell you if you die from COVID or from the cancer or the heart or whatever else you had. And I have friends and I have clients who have tears in their eyes looking at me. And they're saying, I couldn't even go see my loved one while they were dying. It just burns me up that I took an oath to support this country and fight against tyranny. That's what's happening right now. The election was stolen. Nobody questions it. We have leaders in this state. I don't know where the hell they are, but they can't come out and talk to you. We should all be demanding everybody speak up and take charge of our country. A short wall. You saw Trump there yesterday if you paid attention to news. She didn't go to the border until he went to the border, and she doesn't even go to the area where we're having problems with drugs coming into this country. This gentleman's job is going to get harder and harder because we're not speaking up. And that's why, and my blood pressure was high last week.
It's just as high today, Rick.
I'm
Calm down.
calmer now. I talked to a lot of people, and I'll tell you what I did that day. That particular day, I went skeet shooting all day. You don't think I didn't have fun? I got a picture who was going across that screen of mine. It's appalling. It's appalling. We have teachers that have been teaching critical race theory for the last 10 years, and we're just now finding out about it. Slowly, they're brainwashing our children. Slowly. And we have colleges doing the same thing. So unless people decide they're going to start standing up, I'm going to tell you right now, I have a friend of mine who came from Argentina, is now an American citizen. You know why they came here? Because 20 years ago, they did the same thing. And they're scared to death right now. And you know what he said to me? What I don't understand, Rick, is you guys send soldiers all over the world to fight for their rights, but you don't even protect your own American citizens. So it's my blood pressure not getting high anymore because I finally come to the position that the Lord's taking care of me. I don't care where I'm at. But he's also allowed you the ability to stand up for yourself and think for yourself and not be told what to do. And examiners for a year and a half tell us they don't even know how to tell if they died from that. And they're lying to us because they're proof. I have a friend of mine. And the reason why I'm getting riled up is because they want to.
Well, first of all, the medical examiner doesn't keep that data. I hate to bring that to your attention.
If you
But
can't-
you asked him was a question that he didn't have the data to support to answer it.
What's a medical examiner supposed to do? Tell you died, you lived, that's all he does. They do an investigation. What's the investigation about with the autopsies to decide how you died? That is not true. Am I wrong? Am I thinking? Scott, am I wrong? I didn't mean to put you, does anybody,
The medical examiner, the only job that they really do is if there's any suspicious cause of death, where if the sheriff or one of his officers show up to a scene and they think that there could be some foul play involved in that, that's when the medical examiner gets involved. My father-in-law died last year, and he was in hospice. He died at home. The medical examiner never came out.
who does the autopsy?
Nobody came out.
When you request an autopsy, who does the autopsies? That's my question.
Medical examiner, and a
Medical
pathologist, and a pathologist.
I want to know what those answers are. But let's get beyond that. We have children right now, they want us to
They
vaccine
didn't
their
do an
child.
autopsy on everybody that died.
Oh, they didn't, but the ones you did, shouldn't you think their number will be in there? They can tell they can't. He told us they can't. Now,
Sure.
I'm talking about,
No, I'm not sure that's what he meant either.
there are people right now that are having infections from the vaccines, and we're not talking about it. That's all I'm trying to say. All I'm saying is, America, please, whatever you do, stand up. But in the meantime, go out there and salute that damn flag this weekend and tell them that you're right and you got the right to do so. And I don't care if you're Democrat, Republican, Independent, you can think like you want. That's what America's all about. But to fight each other and keep us fighting each other so that we keep destroying each other is ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. I'll stand up behind anybody. If he believes you 100% this way, great. Tell me your opinion. Let's go to the voting booths and vote. But do not cheat me either, because I'll let you know. But in the meantime, you guys have a great week. Are you okay? I mean, I'm okay. I'm real okay right now.
Brian,
Met with John Bussell on Friday. We went out, we toured the Pollyant Trail. There's 3 main spots that need some attention. One of the spots, over half the trail was washed out. Me and John took the county's Kawasaki mule out there, and John would not drive across what was left of the trail. It was that scary. It's about a 15-foot drop. So, and I understand it's not our property, it's not our, we're given some money by the state to maintain this. I have a meeting later today with a trail specialist from the DNR, and we're going to discuss options. But from a liability standpoint, I don't care whose problem this is, it needs to be fixed. And whether it's the state's responsibility, whether it's the drain commissioner's responsibility, whether it's our responsibility, I don't know. I'm trying to get those answers, but at the end of the day, if somebody gets hurt out there, guess what? They're going after everybody. So, hopefully next week I'll have some more information.
thank you for meeting with the Pollyant Trail Group.
You are very welcome, sir.
Is it, do you feel like it's appropriately marked for safety purposes? So that we're at least somewhat covered by?
No. No, it's not.
Maybe we need to do that.
How would you propose that we do that?
How many propose we pay for it?
Well, I'm
It's
thinking
state
of,
property.
I'm thinking of signs that indicate the danger.
Okay.
Not that
Where
we,
are we supposed to get those?
you can make them, sandwich boards, or whatever, but there are places, but
Are you volunteering to do that?
And this is state property, I understand.
This
Yeah,
is
it's not
state
the
property
county's.
that the county is paid to to maintain, as far as, at least to my knowledge, to keep the grass cut type stuff and the brush back and things like that, but
Jackie can tell you how much the grant is.
$7,500 a year from what I understand.
Yes, it's a reimbursing grant. We front the money and they repay us.
And it used to be, I believe, double that at one
Yes.
point. And it's whittled its way down.
Yes.
Like I said, I'm just informing you.
I understand.
One more question for you. There was a confusion last week. Somebody asked me, what were you saying about the scout that raised some money? You said you did good. What happened in that situation? You know,
That was at the Dragon Park. The Eagle Scout project, he put that new playground equipment over by the water slide. That was his Eagle Scout project, what, 3-4 years ago, probably?
Just finished last year.
And just, that's very good.
So, but then there's other playground equipment up by the hall up there that is extremely old as well.
So we weren't changing his good to you.
No, no,
We're
no,
just
no.
saying, okay.
That's an additional spot. That's
Additional spot.
Yes.
Okay, that
Equipment
was-
needs to be upgraded.
Gotcha.
And we did look at that while we were out on, when we went to the park to go out on the trail. We did look at that equipment as well. And we would like to order a portion of the playground equipment we were putting at Terzuski was several pieces. We'd like to put like one of those pieces up at that Dryden as well, so that that'll be coming back.
Anything else?
That's it.
Lenny?
Nothing, we have a personnel committee and our personnel chair is not here, so myself and Dial, who are one of the committee members, and
Brian just sat in and Brenda's place.
right, so we'll be,
So I think you have seniority there, so you can chair it.
sure, okay, so we'll be doing that right after this meeting.
Or do you want to chair it? I don't care.
I go with seniority.
Hi. We'll do rock, paper, we'll do rock, paper, scissors at the end of the meeting.
You guys figure that out. I mean,
No problem.
and then right after that, we're gonna have another meeting, correct?
Yes.
So we'll just, as soon as that personnel meeting's over, we'll just go on to another meeting for.
Here,
Mr. Chairman, I will have to leave at 1:45 today, so.
So that's easy then, that way, just give you 15 minutes of personnel, and we'll just move on. Okay?
good.
Yeah. Okay, who's next? You. Not me. Well, if you got anything else?
The only thing I wanted to add, I think all the commissioners that got questions that Amy Soltow has prepared for review with Quinn in the schedule. So if you have any feedback, they look pretty good to me, pretty thorough. If you get any questions on that or the process, please direct it to me soon, and I'll give that feedback back to her so we can move on with this.
I have a couple comments I will say before after the meeting.
Just make sure everybody was aware that was going on, and we do have time pressure, so we can stay on schedule and try to have that meeting on August 26th to review it. She has indicated, Amy so has indicated she can't be there, but she will have a staff either via Zoom or here, whichever we choose.
You need to be here. Linda? What we're gonna have to start addressing an issue that we have here in the county. It seems as if we've been talking about a new RISE study for a long time. we are gonna have to do this. Because I didn't realize that over 50% of the people in the county are on a, what do we call it?
Labor market exception.
Labor market exception. Over 50% are on labor market exceptions. That can't continue because we're gonna have a lot of problems coming up with cost overruns when it comes to the budget. So that is something that we really have to get with. We gotta get this thing done. Finally, we're gonna have to do it.
In the meantime, I would ask if the administration could at least reach out to Michigan Municipal League and MAC on, a lot of times they will, at the professional association level, do at least a smaller version of that, a wage comparison study. And if in fact they have that ability to do that, that at least gives us the ability to not examine what each individual job classification is comprised of. We might do that process, but at least based on these job titles, these positions, here's what the market is, because I think that might at least be another intermediate step, and it's important for us in our decision-making process to know if that's an option or not.
Well, we're gonna have to find someone from the outside to do this for us because internally we can't do this because we'll be viewed by certain groups that we're, playing favoritism with people inside the county. And some of these labor market exceptions almost look like we're doing that now, so.
Check to see if that company that did it before for us is around.
No, Bill Wright's on the
Well, yeah, that was done at
21 years ago.
least 21 years ago.
20 years ago.
So we were supposed to review that every, 2 years? We were supposed to update that, right, study?
Don't remember. I
Well,
don't think.
how could you remember? You weren't here then. I wasn't here.
No, I
then.
went through it, just
Yeah.
from a departmental level.
Well, I don't know about that. You're being paid too much. Never mind.
It gets
I just think that that's
more
something,
complicated.
I
than
just
that.
think that that's something we have to work on. We've been talking about doing that because we're still going to be, or we're gonna have to put a stop to any pay increases by anybody until after we do budget hearings. Because people inside of these departments are gonna have to start looking at what their costs are inside of the departments. Because you always talk about overspending our budget, I wanna tell you something, we got a lot of that going on. So,
I'm sure we're gonna get reports back from administration about that soon.
Yes. The revenues side of the budget is available to all the department heads starting last Monday.
right,
I've had at least 2 people look at it.
And if anybody overspends, we get notice.
Oh, yeah, I've got the 6-month report sitting on my
well,
desk.
we're not
Anybody
talking
wants to
about
see it.
overspending, we're talking about this board allowing them to continue to increase costs. That's not overspending, Dial, that's just. I need one more motion.
Motion to adjourn.
Meeting's adjourned.
Jackie, do you have your budget calendar already being prepared to be prepared for us to fill out? Just that time of year that normally.
Well, Doreen and I talked about that. We thought what I passed out last week was sufficient. Is there something more
Okay.
formal that you need?
No, I'm talking about more for the department heads, just for their.
Oh, yeah, I sent that to them. I sent that and the calendar and the link to the budget.
That's all I want to know, just so that they've got time.
Yes,
Thank you.
absolutely.